Thank you. Good evening, one and all. Thank you for your attendance. We have one or two missing, I think, looking at the sparsity of members, but we'll come to that later. Anyway, on the agenda, first item, apologies. I have one at the moment from Councillor Adam Parker. Are there any others?
No other apologies, Chairman.
Thank you, Andy. Item 1, the minutes of the meeting held on the 12th of September. I'm sure everybody has seen a copy and read. Can I consider that an accurate minutes, please? Agreed. Agreed. Thank you very much.
Chairman, can we just quickly do the housekeeping note?
Oh, yes, my apologies.
Yeah, it's okay. So please note that this meeting is being broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. Please use your microphone and switch it off once you've finished speaking. Please switch any mobile devices to silent. If the fire alarm rings, please leave the room and use the nearest fire exit. Please do not use the lift. Please go to the fire assembly point in the car park. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Andy. Yes, indeed. I need to welcome everybody. So good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Place and Sustainability Overview and Scrutiny Panel. I'm the Chairman, Councillor Steve Rippon-Swain. I will now hand over to Temporary Services, who have carried out their task already, so thank you, Andy. Next, for the benefit of those watching this meeting online, please would members introduce themselves during the meeting, if not already introduced, by name, portfolio holders and officers as well, if you would kindly give your name, your post and your, shall we say, a one-liner on your task. Thank you. Right, item 1, minutes to approve the minutes, and I've got agreement already. Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interests. Any members that have any interests to declare? None seen. If you do think about it before the event, do let us know. Item 3 is participation of the public, and there are none. Item 4, corporate plan, key performance data for quarters 1 and 2. Yaqub Yazin, good evening. You have got the pleasure of introducing this to us. So over to you, please.
Thank you so much. Good evening. So my name is Yaqub Yazin. I'm the Performance and Insight Manager, and I'll be talking through the key performance indicators. So these are formed as part of our latest corporate plan 2024-2028. And since then, we've also put in place a performance management framework that was approved at Cabinet in August last year. So that performance management framework outlined our reporting and accountability commitments. And as part of that accountability, I'm here today to talk through our Q1 and Q2 data. So the data is presented in the form of the dashboards. I should say in October last year, our executive management team were asked to review the targets for each of the KPIs, and that work was concluded. And at that meeting, we agreed that the quarterly dashboards of approved measures should be fed into our reporting cycle, which includes all 3 panels. So this dashboard will be presented to all the scrutiny panels. With reference to the appendix, just to explain and talk through the structure and form of the dashboard, because it is the first time we're presenting it back in this way. There are 48 KPIs, key performance indicators in total, presented on the dashboard. Each is organised by the corporate plan theme and then the corporate plan priority. The portfolio holder is given, the associated panel, and the data owner for each of the KPIs. The desired direction of travel is indicates whether good performance is typified by an increasing or decreasing value. The return format shows the unit of the value being reported. The frequency shows how often the KPI is to be reported. This period shows the value for the given reporting period. So in this case, relative to the baseline in Q1 and the last reporting period for Q2. I'd like to just give a short summary of the Q1 data, first of all, as is pertinent to this panel. So in Q1, data is presented for 36 of the KPIs, including some of our annual figures. For place and sustainability, 12 measures were available for Q1 out of a total of 18. And of note to the place and sustainability panel, I'd like to make reference to our planning measures, which I felt performed well. And although major and minor applications determined in time are amber, I should note that our local targets are set much higher than the government prescribed targets. The total outstanding net dwelling supply is forecast to fall short of its targets. However, remedial actions are planned as per our delivery plan. It is thought, at least in part, that the significant increase in household waste sent for recycling is due to the move to the wheeled bins for garden waste, and seasonal variations will likely impact this over the next 2 quarters as we get into the data for the winter period. Concerning water bottle filling stations, we've had some cooler weather over the spring and summer, and that has meant lower visitor numbers utilising our water filling stations. And there has been a bit of a balance between commercial and residential space. So our conversion from commercial to residential countered the development of industrial employment land that's been developed over that period. Moving on to Q2, as presented in the dashboard, overall, 27 of the KPIs were available in Q2, and we are now able to also reflect back on the Q1 position. Relevant to place and sustainability, 9 place and sustainability measures are available for Q2, and of note, the planning measures, they continue to perform well. However, major applications determined in time is below target, but we should note that our locally set target of 85% is in fact 25 percentage points above the government prescribed target of 60%. Our appeals metric actually shows that 2 of our 15 appeals were allowed, 13 being dismissed. These small numbers do tend to give a large variance against our target. Household using our chargeable garden waste service performs well to our cumulative targets. Fly tipping remains green rated, and again the water filling stations has been impacted. That measure has been impacted by some cooler weather over spring and summer. It's lower than our target, albeit by 4.5%. I'd like to say, first of all, that I'm really pleased to be able to bring this scorecard to all our panels, in fact, as set out in our performance management framework. It provides a sense check against progress in a transparent way. I'd be pleased to take any further questions and comments concerning the Q1 and Q2 dashboards. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are there any? Malcolm, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And thank you for that report. I've got 3 questions and sort of an over strategic comment. The first one is about fly tipping. Now, the report is based on a total of 775 fly tipping incidents divided by the population of the forest. Yes, right, and media population estimates. Why did you do it that way instead of just recording 775 and then seeing whether they go up or go down? Do you want to do them one at a time, or should I ask them all in one go?
If you don't mind, that would be helpful. I could deal
One at a
do one
time.
at a time. Yeah, thank you.
That's first for you.
There's a couple of reasons why we've done it this way. It becomes, we could have just done the number of incidents, but it's difficult to get that context then around that number. So what's a good number and what's a low number? This is a nationally defined metric, and we do look at comparisons against different areas. So there's a per population element added to this metric. So given the number of fly tipping incidents and take into context the population in that area, and it allows a bit of a benchmarkable number that we can compare with other councils.
So there's a figure for how many you're allowed to have benchmarked compared to everyone else.
It allows a comparison. So we could compare our numbers in the context of the population that's living in the area to, let's say, an urban area or a unitary authority that would also then take into account their resident population.
Okay, I'll come back to that in a minute at the end. But the next two questions are about the 33. There's proportion in percentage terms of employee jobs with hourly pay below living wage. That's not NFDC employees, is it? Or is that people employed in the district? The number 33.
Sure, thank you. I can double check the definition, but I'm to find out. I imagine that's come from labour workforce statistics from the
So
government.
our own workforce.
It won't be
So
our
I
own
didn't think we had anybody below the living wage.
This is across the entire district, and
Pardon?
it's across the entire district, and it's data
Right.
that's not owned by NFDC. It's not provided by NFDC.
Okay, I should come back to that one then. And what I'm interested in is the resident perception of our high streets and town centres, which, there's nothing by it. It's grey. I mean, how can that be? I can understand it being a KPI. We want them to feel better about our town centres, but we're not doing anything to do that, are we? And it's the one underneath is bad. And the overarching thing of all these key performance indicators are designed to improve performance of the organisation. Okay? So if we want to reduce fly tipping in the New Forest, it doesn't matter how it pans out against Winchester or Southampton City, we want to improve it for us. So we need to look at how many instances we have, regardless of any population dynamic change, say, let's try and have less next year and less the year and so forth. That's improving performance. I would personally challenge, from my business background, trying to do an indicator tied into population dynamics in other areas. It doesn't really relate to how it's getting better. And it's a bit the same with the perception. If we're trying to improve perception, well, okay, what are we doing about it? How do we improve it? Is that really something we've got a lot of challenges as an authority, but why bother putting it in if it's not something we can do anything about? And there's no plan to improve it. And I mean, some of these KPIs are really good, and believe me, you've put together infinitely better than it was before. All credit to you, and you've talked a good talk. But some of these I don't think really as relevant to a modern organisation that we need to be. We need to have clear, defined KPIs with targets, with improvements, and what we're doing if we don't hit the target or beat the target. Because that's how organisations get better. And I'm speaking from sort of private sector experience. This is how we're taught to work and operate. And we should try and emulate that with what we're doing. Hope I've not articulated that okay.
Thank you, Malcolm. Can I ask James, please, to give you an answer?
Yeah, no, sure. Thank you, Malcolm. I'm James Carpenter, Strategic Director of Place Operations and Sustainability. I mean, as I understand it, the KPIs have been through process and have been through sign-off by the Cabinet. So ultimately, these are the Cabinet's KPIs and the organisational KPIs. We're here to report on the performance against those agreed KPIs. I accept you may have a different view on how you'd have liked them put forward. I absolutely hear that, and we can take that feedback away. But certainly what SAC is here to do this evening is to provide that data. I think, we as the person responsible for the local environment, as the most senior officer for that, ultimately absolutely would agree. We absolutely abhor fly tipping in our district. I drove past one this morning on my way through the district. It's so frustrating. It's such a horrible thing to see in such a beautiful place like the New Forest. And absolutely we are working to try and tackle that. We work closely with Forestry England. We work closely with the police. We regularly undertake undercover surveillance operations and sting operations and that kind of stuff. And I was only speaking to colleagues from the team today to say they've identified some data and some number plate data that's hopefully going to lead to a prosecution on one in the last couple of days. So the team are working closely on that as a metric. I think we have that measure, and why it's got the component that is related to population is because it is, I think, of interest to see how this is an issue for us here in the New Forest, but actually to give that broader context and allow us to compare apples with apples, I think is why that's in that way. It was my understanding, certainly on that metric, Malcolm.
Jim, you have to come back on that point. Sure. The New Forest district is quite a unique environment, and it's most unique district in Hampshire. There's no other one quite like it. There are other districts with similar rural areas, and there's a bit of a national park as well, but not quite like our district with spread out communities. So the point is, it's not egg for eggs or apples for apples, because our uniqueness, because we have the communities spread out, lots of forest, a huge percentage of crown land, it is different, and therefore it needs to be treated as an individual statistic. And looking at how we can improve, measure what was it last year, what's it this year, what would we like it to be next year, and what we're doing to do that. So I appreciate the points you made that we're working with the police and so forth. But that's the sort of thing that we need to highlight in this, because it shows what we're doing to try and make it better.
But again, the importance, if I may come back, Chair, the importance of the metric in terms of us being able to say we've got an issue that's higher than average. We know that part of the challenge we have is that people drive in off the A31 and they come into the forest and they do their business and they're away somewhere else. So we're able to say, look, we do, what we want to be able to say to partners is, look, we've got a real issue here. It's an issue that's made worse because of the locality and some of the issues that we're seeing and the connectivity we've got. And how do we deal with that? So I think that's partly why we've got that metric in place. I absolutely take your point, Malcolm, but there is a rationale as to why we want some comparables in there.
Thank you, Malcolm. Alan.
Thank you very much. Councillor Glass, Holbury, Hartley and North Blackfield. Most of what I was going to say has been covered by James, but the reason we do bring it down per capita makes it, well, as you know, we all worked in statistics. So as you can compare this with Central London, but also we can also look at the same figures and see if they've gone better or worse. And if we follow the growth patterns over other areas of similar type, we can, one, tell we're keeping up with developments, and secondly, see how we're getting on. I think we've got to bring it down to, so as we compare what happens to an area of containing, say, 50 people with an area of somewhere else that contains 50 people. Although we've got more open space to put our litter on, we still need litter, or still have litter, I should say.
Thank you. Stephanie, you're next.
Yeah, we've had our surgeries lately, and people have been coming with the comment about how difficult it is to take your rubbish to the Marchwood tip with the steps and no help. So I think that a lot of those have actually decided to go for the wheelie bin. As you said, it's increased. I also want to say that the car parks in the forest, they're ideal for secretive dumping. Along the A326 recently, there's been someone that's obviously getting rid of tyres. So there was actually 5 or 6 tyres on the side of the road. So that was quite unusual. And then you sort of see perhaps a blown out one from, what we used to see in the old days. 1 tyre is acceptable. You think they couldn't stop, it's too fast. But blatantly 5 or 6 tyres dumped just outside all those roadworks. How did they do it? And I feel that we certainly don't want figures comparing how many people live here, because this is, it's quite densely populated in some places, but it's also sparsely populated. And to see the things that are being fly tipped here probably aren't even from the people that live here. As they said, they do travel to try and avoid, being seen where they're known. So I just feel like the number, as Councillor Wade said, we need the number for the district council of how much fly tipping we've got and reduce it, not any of these confusing statistic type answers. Thank you.
Very well, thank you. Peter?
Councillor Peter Armstrong, just a concern. I mean, we're serving nearly 4,000 people with the Apple Tree Care Line. Can someone give me an assurance that when the phone lines are changed, do we have something in place? Because all around the country, our landline phones are being changed away from that. Is there a process in place that enables to continue to serve these older people across the forest?
James, are you able to?
Sorry, could you clarify which of the measures you're referring to?
When we're looking at the care line services, number 4, we're serving nearly 4,000 people with Apple Tree Care Line. It's just a concern of when the phone lines, in the normal sense, they take that service away, which they are across the country, that we have something in place, or there's a way that we can continue to serve our elderly people in that way.
Councillor Armstrong, that's for the Housing and Communities Scrutiny panel, but I'll certainly take away the point and raise it with Richard, who's the director, and ask him to come back to you.
Okay, thank you. It's just we need to continue to serve our elderly people, whichever way we can.
Yeah. Right, anybody else? No, thank you very much. Thank you, Skip. Item 4, portfolio holders updates. We normally have 2, but so I think, Derek, are you batting for both? But I'll leave it you first anyway.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I've got a few points to raise here. First of all, the local plan. Our call for sites closed on the 13th of December, and at which time we've had 150 submissions of sites to be reviewed. We are expecting more sites to come forward in the coming weeks. However, it's unlikely that we'll be able to meet our housing need as calculated by the government formula, even with all of these sites, assuming that they come forward. The next focus we have on the plan is in preparing the issues and scope document, which is due to be considered at the February Cabinet for approval to consult widely with stakeholders. And that will take place, that consultation, assuming it all gets approved, from mid-February to the end of March. Other points to note, the BCP local plan examination starts on the 21st of January, and that is looking quite challenging for them to achieve their housing provision. The Hampshire County Council Mineral Waste Plan, that's going for public examination on the 4th of February. You remember we had quite a lot of discussion about that plan when it came here before, but it's now going for the public examination. I wrote a letter to Angela Rayner, that's the second letter I've written to her actually, at the beginning of the year on behalf of the council to express our serious concerns about the revised National Planning Policy Framework and its implications for our house building in our area, due to the very high level of constraints of which you're all aware. I haven't had a response so far to either letter, but we'll wait and see on that one. The Shared Prosperity Fund, you remember last year we had a total of £1.5 million altogether, and in the 24-25 year, projects for that pot of money are nearing completion, and there are 10 case studies of projects that have been uploaded to the council's website, and you can find it on a link, which is, if you're interested in looking this up, it's the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund. That's the put in your search engine and find it that way. It's quite interesting. For this year, 2025 to 26, we have also been awarded an allocation of funding. It's not as much as last time, it's £327,146 allocated to us, and that's only recently been confirmed. We now need to decide how this is to be allocated to local projects this year. On On the economy department at NFDC, we're recruiting new economy development manager and another officer as well, and interviews are taking place over the next few days. There was a pleasing level of applicants for both these posts. On building control, we're currently in the middle of an audit by the building safety regulator. And these audits are now a routine part of the regulator's responsibilities, raising the standards across the country now in the wake of the Grenfell tragedy. All our building control officers have achieved the new high-level qualifications, as you may remember my mentioning it to you at the last full council meeting when answering a portfolio question. Finally, a couple of items. The community infrastructure levy bids, again this year we've set out £1 million for people to bid for capital funding for local projects, and this window also closed in December, and we have received 77 bids, pleased to tell you, and the total cost of all those bids, if they were all be met in full, would be £3 million. So it shows you how popular that is. And a task and finish group has now been established to select the successful bids. And this is going to happen at the end of this month. And that concludes my report, Jim.
Thank you, Derek. One last question I want to ask you is, you mentioned that BCP's local plan is going through a review on our western boundary. Are there any implications for NFDC in it?
Well, they were similarly constrained and short of the housing target that they've been allocated. As we expect we will very likely be in the same position. So it would be interesting to see what the inspector says when he comes to evaluate their plan, and this is what the public hearing will determine. So we'll look with interest to see what happens there.
Fine. Thank you. Alan.
Thank you. In the Fawley parish, we've got the old power station at Calshot. The site of this was designated for housing. But every so often we're getting retrospective planning applications for storing vans, mucking about with wind turbines. We've got another one now. So it's gradually getting taken over by business, but not taken over with our knowledge. They're just doing it and getting caught. Is that going to affect our housing allocation for planning? Because it's a heck of a job to get these people off this site once they've moved in. Because what we do seem to do is say, oh, you've got 25, 50 vans there. Oh, just apply for planning permission, we'll let it go. But we really cannot carry on like this, because obviously we want the housing there.
James, can I ask you to answer that one?
So certainly happy to do what we can to respond there. We continue to engage with the consortium behind Fawley Waterside as members in this chamber and various other council meetings will be aware. The planning application was withdrawn. The basis for the withdrawal of that planning application was concerns over the viability of that site to deliver housing. And we fully expect the kind of promoters of that site to come forward with a new proposition. They are one of those landowners who've made representations to the local plan, as you might imagine, in that call for site. So there is still clearly an ambition to develop the site, but it is a brownfield site. Its existing and current use is a commercial use, and ultimately that is the starting point. We are aware of some activity through kind of visits to the site and also from reporting from local residents that we've sought to investigate, and we've provided opportunity for the landowners, as is standard planning practice, to regularise any potential breaches of planning control through the application process, and it's through that enforcement process and that opportunity to regularise is why certain applications are coming through. The scale of the uses on those sites, ultimately, are what they are, but they are on a brownfield commercial site as it currently is designated in terms of its planning land use, albeit it's got a designation in the existing local plan for housing.
Thank you very much. I've just been informed it's over 500 vans there at the moment.
Well, I assume enforcement will be out soon enough. Malcolm.
Yeah, Chair, I've got a question, but before, just to come back on that point, that site, it's got designated Freeport rights. It's got a large amount of housing, plus a large amount of brownfields for industry. And that affects the people in the waterside in Fawley and in Hyde and Dibden and further up. What happens there is really going to impact our area. And we like to ensure that this council is on top of their game, trying to work with the developer to get a development there that not only ticks the boxes for housing that we need, but the infrastructure also works for the people that already live there. And I think that was a valid point to put across. I think the question I have was on the portfolio's figures about housing. In the figures we have for designated sites, plus sites that have already got planning permission, etc., because we're still behind the game line, presumably, for the number of houses that the government wants to make. Does that include sites that have already got planning permission and developers have been sitting on it for a number of years? I'm particularly thinking of Western. Do those figures include those? Because that developer has been sitting on a massive site for a long time.
I believe that is correct, is it not? James, would you verify that for me?
Yeah, I believe all the numbers are included, and we are aware of sites that have got planning consent. They are in the minority in this district, to be honest, but the one you identify is one we're aware of. And, you know, as part of that housing delivery action plan, we set out what we thought were appropriate measures to try and address that. I mean, ultimately, you know, the council can't force a developer to develop a site as much as you might like us to. You know, it's their land. They can do what they want with it. I mean, ultimately, you know, we are being judged by government on the number of units we deliver, not the number of units we grant planning permission for.
Any other questions? No? Thank you, Derek. Right, on to item 6, members. The work programme is listed there for the next one in March. Let's find my papers. At the moment, there's about 3 items. Thank you very much. Yes, the Environment Agency presentation that we were going to have at this meeting and got postponed has been relocated to this 30th of March date. The other ones are fairly straightforward, coming round, climate change adaptation, etc., etc. And then one already in place for 19th of June. Right, okay. Thank you for that. Malcolm.
Chairman, I have a question really. Does water supply fall under the remit of place and sustainability? Because I know flooding clearly does, which is water that we don't want, but I'm thinking about Southern Water and their performance, and it will be interesting to have an item to review the performance so far and what they're doing to try and avoid the water outages that we seem to be having on a fairly regular basis, and affects particularly the people on the water side, which is another issue which I'm really unhappy with. And it will be, does that aspect fall on us, or housing and communities?
I would advise most likely housing communities, particularly as that's where the emergency response element of the council's operations sit. But clearly, if it was considered by a housing and communities panel, then obviously members of this panel would be welcome to go and join that panel, as has been normal process. That would be my expectation. Storage of sewage capacity. The capacity of sewage. we could look at that here, I suspect, if that's something that members felt. I mean, ultimately, scrutiny is for members to determine what they want to scrutinise. I mean, ultimately, what the council's role in that is what you would be looking to scrutinise.
Sorry, can I come back sorry, I'm sorry to be harp on this. What about water supply? I know the emergency response, but the actual supply of a primary factor in life is that surely must be across the piece, but it's certainly sustainability, isn't it? If you don't have water, life isn't sustainable.
I think if we look at things like infrastructure, so electricity supply, water supply and the like, and whether there is capacity, then certainly that is something that this panel could look at.
Chairman, I'll just humbly suggest that with a lot of the problems we've been having, that we put that as a work item to get Southern Water to talk about their performance and what they're doing to have sustainable supply going forward without some of the problems we've incurred.
Malcolm, Alan.
Thank you. Yeah, to take Malcolm's point, at Gangwarity, we have the main pipe leading to the Isle of Wight. It broke the other day, so it looked like the tide came in. Well, the tide's gone out again now. So we've now got a 40-foot deep hole left dug across the edge of Gangwarity and across the pavement and the cycleway. So we asked Southern Water, what are they going to do about it? Well, basically the reply we got, we'll get round to it sometime. When you go further up to our dog walking area, they've just dug the whole of that up and left it. So I think Southern Water do need to, I can't think of a polite word for it, but get their finger out. Because they're just digging great big holes, patching the pipes that are donkey's years old and past patchy. They really need to get a grip and become a professional organisation. Now, let's face it, piped water was introduced in Rome in Roman times. And Southern Water, or the local water, haven't got used to how to manage it yet. They've had time. Thank you.
Thank you. I think you'll follow that up later as far as items are concerned, with infrastructure and so on. Stephanie.
Chairman, Councillor Glass has just prompted me. We had a similar thing on our open space where the children go to school. I buy it every day. It had danger, deep excavations, fences around it, and it was totally forgotten. Not only that, the district council had actually spent quite a lot of money on this area to try and make it nice. And we said, can you make sure that when you do repair it, you put it back how it was? And I received photos from the residents around there showing us that it was not a good job that was done. So I'll add my comments to yours.
Thank you. Okay.
Chairman, can I just...
Right. Andy, you'll need to make a statement, please.
Yeah, just to remind members, you would have had an email from one of my colleagues in Democratic Services that the draft air quality strategy is being considered by Housing Panel next Wednesday, the 22nd at 6 o'clock, and Place Panel members are invited for that item. Thank you.
Okay. Right, well, unless there's anything else, that's this programme so far, so I can declare the meeting closed. Thank you.